the most accurate information because you have everything lying in front of you for you to touch, feel, and sense. Make sense? So let's go to the next slide.
Next slide, Amma.
What is the use of music?
That is not to charm snakes. Sorry, good question. That is they have a culture with music also. If we go to Mahabalipuram on one specific time, I forgot the name of the festival. You can find all the Irulas in Tamil Nadu coming there for that. I forgot the name of the festival. I've seen them doing that once. So music is always there in the culture. You go to the next slide.
Does snake attract to music?
No, it doesn't. Snake does not have ears like us. There's nothing that snake can hear. It takes a little bit of sound from the ground through vibration. The vibration travels through the lower jaw and kind of gets a sense of what's happening around it. But snakes do not have ears. Even if you sing the best song in the world, they're not going to respond to you. But they respond to movements. If you go zigzag, they go zigzag. If you jump, they look at you. If you come down, they only attract movements. They really cannot see even properly, but they have everything appears like a shadow to them, and also vibration in another way that they feel that something is closer to them. All right. So let's go ahead and figure out how much we are like snakes internally. Forget about externally.
Is it true that snake understands more about its environment through its tongue than its eyes?
Yes, that's one of the main sense of it. Next. Okay. I'm not going to talk much about this, guys. This is very school stuff, right? I want you guys to take a look at the slide and tell me that one thing that the snake has that we don't have. We pretty much look very similar internally, right? We have stomach, snake has stomach. We have gallbladder, we have spleen, we have stomach, we have right lung, we have left lung, we have trachea, we have, it has 3 lungs. Now that's the only difference I can say, internally. Probably it has venom gland and all that differentiates them. But otherwise, we're pretty much the same. People believe that the snake entire body is filled with venom. There's a misconception. The whole body is not for venom, it's for the other internal organs, honestly speaking, right? So, this is pretty much how a snake looks at it. And a lot of people say that, you know what, paambukku udumbala visham. Correct, right? A lot of people, they say that. That's not true. This pretty much shares the same kind of digestive system, I would say, and the rest of the others, just the way humans are. Next slide, please. How many people thought that snakes don't have bones? A lot of people tend to kind of make a mistake telling that, you know what, snakes are more like rubbery, they're flexible, it's full of flesh and all that. They pretty much have bones just like how our rib cages are. The reason why they can bend so much is because they have so much of bones aligned so closely to each other. That's what they can pretty much make the entire coil. Now this is pretty much how a rattlesnake's skeleton looks, and any snake skeleton looks like this. Right? Let's go to the next slide. Now we're talking about venom. Let's go to the next slide. Fangs. Okay, there are 2 types of fangs. Actually, there are 3 types of fangs. I've not highlighted the third one. The first one is fixed fang. Usually the cobras and cranes, Nallapam and Kattuviriyan has fixed fangs, right? And Surutaviriyan and Kannadiviriyan, that is Russell's viper and saw-scale vipers, have movable fangs. Now these fangs can pretty much work like independently move, right? It pretty much works like a gun magazine. How much of you know how a gun operates? You put down the magazine, you fire, the next shot comes into the reloads, right? Once a fang falls off, the fangs from behind take effect. They come into action. Now that's pretty much how the fangs look like in a snake. And for some snakes, especially the green vine snake, the one that pokes your eyes apparently, has a fang somewhere in between. They have a fang somewhere in between. These are called the rear fang snakes. These 2 are front fang. These are called the rear fang snakes, and very few snakes have that type of a fang. And one is definitely India is our green vine snakes. And they share the back fangs. And most of the snakes have the rear fangs. And in the rear fangs, you have movable fangs and fixed fangs. Right? Next. Next. Now, venom apparatus. Now, this is a very close look as to how it looks in reality, right? Now, there is a flesh covering the sheath. It's called a sheath. There's a flesh covering the fang. Now, that is a protection for the fang so that the fang doesn't break. Makes sense, right? So, it's pretty much the same mechanism. Why do you think knives are kept inside a sheath? So that it doesn't lose its sharpness. Right? It pretty much works out in the same way. And What happens? Venom system is very easy to understand. It's as good as you can go home to a medical, you can go to a medical shop and buy a syringe. Excuse me. What does a syringe has? It has a section where it holds the medicine. It has a section where you can push the medicine out, and it has a section where it discharges the medicine. Okay? The venom apparatus works pretty much the same way. The needle is nothing but the snake's fang, right? And the main container which holds the venom is nothing but the snake's gland, right? The plunger that you push with your finger is, there are two muscles located in the top and the bottom of the venom gland, and whenever it opens the mouth and it bites, those muscles contract the gland, more like a water bag, contracts the water bag, and the venom shoots out of the pipe and gets out of the fangs. Now that's how it works. Now, believe me that people talking that snake is full of venom, that's not true. The venom gland is really tiny and is located right at the side of the jaw, right? And this is how it's extracted. See what this guy is doing. He's ideally holding the snake by his head, the fangs are inserted into that device, and he's pressing that one area right behind the eyes. That's exactly where the venom gland is located. But the more you press that, the more venom comes out eventually, right? And venom is something like a saliva. Once the snake bites, don't think the venom got over. It pretty much keeps regenerating. Regenerating again. Okay. Can we go to the next slide if you don't mind? Next. These are some of the snake bite effects, and I'll talk to you guys about it. Stop here. Probably the most important section, when someone gets bitten by a snake, the most important thing for you to do is to reassure the victim. Tell that, hey, you know what, everything is safe, I'm going to take you to the hospital, right? Don't get the victim excited. And that's the most important thing. And if snake bite happens to yourself, it's important even you compose yourself. You don't have anyone telling that, hey, you know, everything's going to go alright. Second thing is immobilizing. What is immobilizing? Anywhere that you're bitten by the snake, that section should be kept really still. Reason being is if you move that section, the blood pressure is going to increase and eventually the venom is going to circulate in your system and your body will go up. Third is get to a hospital, because that's exactly where most of the job is done in saving your life. Even if you carry an anti-venom with you, that's not going to help you survive, because most of the anti-venom is administered through hospital. You need those facilities for you to do. And then tell the doctor the following signs. The signs are very important. What really saves your life is not the medicine. Tell the doctor what exactly you're going through so that he can administer the right amount of venom. Right? If you tell that I'm bitten by snake, and let's say for example I'm bitten by crane, doctor, I'm going through something, I think it's a snake bite, there's nothing happening for now, but I'm feeling uncomfortable, he'll give you one anti-venom dosage, which is not enough. And eventually you'll die even after inserting. So it's important that you tell the doctor what exactly you're going through in detail if you're unconscious. If you're not unconscious, then the doctor will figure out the other ways to go and find out through your symptoms and figuring out which snake bit you and how much of antivenom to give. Can we move next?
1 second. What does it mean when you say without compression? Immobilize the venom without compression.
Good question. Without compression meaning, especially when you tie a rope around a specific area, it is important that you don't tie it too hard. If you tie it too hard, what happens? Snake venom is a mixture of proteins and toxins, and those toxins have ability to chew your muscle down. So if you trap the venom in one section, eventually your hand will get eaten by the venom and you lose your hand.
But it's required to tie a rope or something.
Tie your ropes tight enough so that you can insert 2 fingers inside. It shouldn't be so tight that you can't insert finger. It should be slightly loose enough, because eventually your hand also will swell. That will also tighten up the rope. Makes sense, right? Next one.
Thank you.
A great bandage is just about enough for you to kind of tie as a tourniquet. Tourniquet is nothing but a pressure bandage. You can tie about 3 or 4 inch above the area where you're bitten. Okay, and like I said, don't tie it too tight. A pen or a pencil or a rope. I will pretty much give a write-up on how this technique can be used. You can also use a rope to go ahead and wrap around the arm, or if you don't have a rope, you can have a pressure bandage. Now, the reason why I kept a pen, because pen is the most common thing that we carry. You can tie the rope and insert the pen inside and make sure that the pen acts like a lever, so that it is tight enough. Whenever your arm swells up, you can loosen it, again turn the pen so that it stops the blood flow again. Can we go to the next slide? Transportation. Preferably a car, the reason being that you can stay still. Not a car that already has a snake inside and getting bitten once. Make sure that the car doesn't have snakes, especially if you park your car near the wild, You don't know what's got into it. You got bitten outside, you go inside and you get bitten once again. So that's like a lot of hope for you to survive, right? Preferably a bike that doesn't give up. Bikes are important, but not bikes. Make sure that if you're riding bike, that you talk to someone so that they can ride, because once you ride, your blood pressure increases a lot, because you know how our Indian traffic is today, right? Eventually you'll die from blood pressure, not from a snake bite. Makes sense, right? Next. What you're not supposed to do is, this is a very incorrect way of tying a tourniquet. People tend to do this. This is how exactly they apply the pressure bandage. Meeting herbal medicine is a lot of anticoagulant properties, which means that your body is not going to, your blood is not going to dry up. So once you cut, there are cases where people have died from blood loss than the snake bite itself. So cutting your wound, your area where you're bitten by a snake is just not advisable, honestly speaking. Second thing, going to the boogeymans, right? Then a lot of people in the villages, they go visit this herbal doctor. Apparently has a lot of knowledge about snake bite and stuff like that. And then he pretty much cures, giving a small little stick or something. Or who knows, you're just bitten by a rat snake. So that's his escape point. And also getting excited that, yeah, I've been bitten by a snake. No, that's also not advisable. Cracking jokes, going through paranoia, or getting panic attacks will also put you down really quick. Put you down as in it won't kill you. It can get you unconscious depending on which snake bit you. Right? So next, cycling, running, listening to nonsense. Again, listening to nonsense is going through all the misconceptions and unfactual data. Now that also can give a lot of fear in your heart. Let's say someone told, you're bitten by a snake, gone case. You're never going to survive. You go to hospital also, you'll die. There you go, your hope goes, right? That's also kind of contributes a lot amount with that. Next. Just to kind of give an introduction to who I am. Next. I do snake rescue. These are some of my snake rescues. That's an album we have doing cobra capture. That's a Russell Viper, that's a cobra, and that's another Russell Viper. This is something that's an ongoing commitment that I have to the city that I live, that I pretty much engage in snake rescues on a day-to-day basis. Besides that, I rehabilitate snakes, especially during the case where snakes are hit and they are damaged. I kind of get them back home, do the pre-medication, and then get them to a rehabilitation center. This is definitely something that associates me. I wanted to put these pictures because this was done with CTC by itself. So I conduct these field trips. Next. Live demonstration. This used to happen in the past. It's no more happening. If I have to do a live demonstration, I need Forest Department permission. So that's one. A lot of education program, which I think is important as a person who knows something, and I should be conveying some information about it. So there's some of the education programs. And this is my telephone number. This is my email ID. Contact me. If I think I'm rushing this presentation because I'm out of time. So if there's any questions that you guys have, call me anytime. Write up to me. I will be there to respond. All right? And thank you very much. Thank you.
Maybe we can take a few questions. Anyone? Lankesh, you have one question? Stand up.
Okay, loud. Speak up loud, yeah. Who's got a question?
Yeah. Can if we call you for a rescue to catch a snake, after getting a snake, like what do you do?
After I rescue a snake?
Yeah.
Okay, ideally, back in the days, I used to just rescue a snake and release it elsewhere. But today it's not possible. Today a lot of things have come to light. I rescue the snake and then I have to go to a forest officer, get his signature, release the snake in his presence.
But like we have information previously. So if I call a person, snake train, they come and catch a snake, and like after 9 or 10 in the night, they comes to the same place and they release it.
I don't know. I've heard this before. I've heard this before. It is true. But what we need to understand as an environmentalist, once you catch a snake from a spot, I'll give you some factual data. Once you catch a snake from a spot and relocate it 10, 15, 20 kilometers away, I'm not going to justify it, but if you relocate it, studies show that snakes are territorial creatures. Anything that eats meat is a territorial creature, right? So, can you walk, just because you're feeling sleepy, can you walk into someone's house and sleep? That guy won't care, man. He's going to kick your butt and chuck you out of the house. And that's exactly what happens to snakes. You throw them in a different habitat. Let's say you take a snake from a city and throw it into Mandalore forest or somewhere. City has only cats and dogs. Max only that can attack them, and humans. In Wonderwood Forest, there are a million things that eat snake. Bird, from owl to everything. So what happens is, you rescue the snake, you put it in the jungle, eventually it will die in jungle. You're not playing an active role in rescuing anything, actually you're not doing anything. But releasing it in the same spot, data show that snakes tend to live longer. But all of this data come from United States. Right? United States has a lot of space. Here if you have to release it, the fact is that you have to release a snake 200 meters from the place where you rescued. So I would have rescued in Auntie Shobha's house and dropped in Kausalya's house over there. And that's exactly how it happens. But I've heard people doing that. I cannot really justify, I've not done that, but I've heard in Bangalore a lot of people rescue it and put it back in the space so that they call it again. Right? So, how can we avoid this is the question. Good, you guys brought it up. Now that you know something about snake, if you encounter a snake today, I'm sure that you guys will take care of the situation. Either calling or not disturbing a snake. 5 feet away from any snake is safe for you, including king cobras. Right? So if you don't want anything of that to happen, shoo off the snake, because each snake is living around you for a little over 5-6 years now. Just because we found the snake, you want to throw him out there. Right? You don't allow, you don't make noise, you just chase the snake, you did a good job. Maybe you're not going to get applause, but keep it to yourself.
Snakes are shy creatures, right?
They're very shy. Yeah. Someone had a question.
You said a lot of non-poisonous snakes, right? Can you grow them?
Growing snakes without permit. If you're that much interested in keeping snakes at home, ideally keeping animals at home is something I really encourage. But since he's asked the question, let me answer this question. If you want to keep any snakes at home, you cannot keep any Indian species at home, including parrots, crow, kite. Even geckos are not supposed to be. Balli should not be in the house as captivity. I'm not joking. All of these are considered to be protected species. You cannot cut a bamboo tree and keep it at home. When bamboo is protected today, some species of bamboo is protected. So if you want to have a snake, there are pet traders. There are illegal pet traders. You have to get in touch with them and they'll get you. But usually, people who like to keep snakes at home, kind of keeping this presentation a little more, there are people who keep snakes at home. I've seen it. But all of these snakes are imported from another country. These are snakes only bred for captive purpose, for show purpose. You get it in Thailand, there's a huge market existing for that. Right? Any questions?
Suppose I'm trekking somewhere and I'm in the middle of the jungle and I get bit by a snake. What is the first thing how should I get out? What should I do?
The best way to avoid any snake bite is please don't go trek alone. That's your first remedy. Please do not trek alone. Because once you're bitten by the snake, you definitely need a support for someone to carry you outside. Remember, you should not move your limbs. If you're bitten in the leg, and if you keep trekking down, that's it, you won't reach down, you'll pass out in halfway through. Right? So it's important that you go with someone else and you know what is the drill. Right? Reassure, immobilize, take yourself to the hospital, and then get yourself treated.
Another question.
I'll get back. Yes, ma'am.
How long the body can sustain a snake bite?
How long a body can sustain a snake bite? Brilliant question. Cobras, usually it's about 4 hours. If you get bitten by a cobra, you tend to be living for 4 hours, so that's your time left for you to go ahead and get yourself hospitalized. If you don't live for 4 hours, usually you pass out in 2 hours. Venom takes a complete effect and you go black out, right? For a Russell's viper, which is Kannadi variant, it's considered to be about between 3 to 6 hours. There are cases depending on the dosage of venom. For a Saskin viper, there are cases for 2 days. For a crate, it is very short, between 45 minutes to 2 hours. But remember, a snake bite depends on how you're bitten. Either you stamped the snake, or you agitated the snake, or the snake bit you in a defense mode. Sometimes snakes give something called a dry bite. A cobra will bite you, but it won't generate venom. That's just to shoo you off, right? When 2 people are fighting, there are times that we just push people back, right? That's more like the same behavior. Then they get into the fist fight. Then that's a different thing. So these are the times for you to kind of act.
Is it applicable for both human being and animals?
No, it's different. I'm talking about you.
Sir, if a snake actually bites prey, snake bites prey, and then consumes them, is it not poisonous to the snake? How is it?
No. Snakes are immune to their own venom, to some degree. Okay, because God, I think the nature has designed them in such a way that snake venom is nothing but your digestive enzyme. So when you eat chapati, there's a different digestive enzyme. If you eat rice, there's a different digestive enzyme. So this venom acts as a digestive enzyme to the snake. So it's definitely not a good question.
Does every small
Good question. That is something that I want you, one of your CDC volunteers, to take this initiative of figuring out which of the hospitals around Chennai and the vicinity of Chennai provide snake bite treatment. Right? If you guys can get a dashboard on that, that would be great. Because I don't know, with local, I cannot answer that question. But most of the hospitals do have that facility nowadays, not back in the days. Now they have it.
Somewhere I read people say snake bite as a drug.
Okay. Okay.
So how they survive?
Yes, snake bite has been also used as a stimulant in many ways, and I'm not going to tell you the method and stuff like that. There was time that I have gone as a spy, with a camera and stuff, to figure out who does this when I was working for the rehabilitation center. Now I'll tell you why that happens. Now, a alcohol is no different from a snake bite venom, if you ask me, because all of them are stimulant. Now, when you're bitten by a snake, snake venom has different properties. One property is to slow you down from running because the swelling starts, right? All those venom is designed to catch the food item, not humans, right? Let's say a sea snake venom is very powerful than the land snake because sea snake has to catch fish. Fish is it'll disappear in the blink of your eyes. So the venom has to be so powerful to put the fish down in 2-3 seconds. Right? So there's a difference between using a small bullet and a bigger bullet, which creates more impact. So venom is more like that. So venom has different property, and one of the property is to incapacitate the prey, to slow down the prey mentally. So ideally, everyone who gets bitten by the snake do go through a nasha, that is for sure. They go through a very pleasant effect, and after that it's all nightmare. Okay? So it has the property of kind of, making your entire body feel numb, and yes, there are cases like that. That's coming to me. Yes.
Snake bites, wearing shoes.
Okay.
Wearing a shoe and snake bites.
Okay.
Wearing a shoe or on our clothing, would that matter?
The venom?
Yeah.
Okay, good, beautiful question. Yes, this kind of keeps happening. Venom is more like human sperm. Okay, that's the best example that I can. Once you expose your venom to the open air, human sperm to the open air, the sperm becomes invalid. So venom is pretty much the same thing. Once it's exposed to the open air, there are some properties that the venom actually disappears, right? But let's say it's bitten on the cloth and there's still some amount of venom left, and you get a small little gash or a hurt or a bruise there where there is a blood contact, and that can create a reaction. So that's very important. Any other questions? Quick, just a question.
Is it true that different types of snakes require different antivenoms, and that a hospital should recognize which antivenom to give you?
Excellent. Beautiful question. Do different type of snakes need different type of antivenom? Very good question. Yes. Now yes, that is a possibility. That's one way of dealing with snake bites, and there's also another way. Now there are certain snakes where you need the antivenom made from that specific snake's venom. The snake medicine that actually saves you from life is made from the snake venom itself that actually kills you.
Yes.
Right? It's a long process. It's taken, it's injected into a horse, the blood is drawn, antibodies are separated from the blood. That antibodies is what is injected into your system. So a snake in fact has the capacity to also save you. Not at the first time, after we do the antivenom. So some snakes have their unique antivenom, but there are cases for Indian big four snake, which is Russell's viper, Sawsky viper, crate, and cobra. We have something called a polyvenom, which has combination of all four snakes. And the snakes where you need that unique venom is called the monovalent venom, right? There are cases, but in India, for this four snake, there's only one venom. Well, antivenom, sorry about it. Anything else?
Do we need to?
Yes.
Do we need to keep the bitten part above the heart level?
Superb. Do you need to keep the area where you're bitten above the heart level? Absolutely yes. Because once you lift it above the heart, the blood is going to rush a little faster also. So yeah, that's also an important information. Let's say you're bitten right here. Don't walk like this, telling that hey, I'm bitten. Keep it as low as possible so that you have more time to get to the hospital. Yes.
Crazy question.
Yes.
People say once you're bitten by a snake, venomous or otherwise, it increases your immunity level towards snake. Is that true?
No man. Let's say if you're bitten by a Sawsky viper or a Russell's viper, there are a lot of other issues you go through. Actually, your kidney loses half of its capacity because that purifies the blood. You know that your blood is purified by your kidney, not by your heart. So a lot of toxin rushes through your kidney, and eventually the kidney gives up. But after you will be saved with the antivenom. But once you come back, there's a lot of effects that you go through. Rarely reverses. Very rarely. Anything else?
Do you think it's ethical to handle snakes?
Do you think it is?
Ethical to handle snakes.
It is unethical to handle any animal. Even dogs, if you ask me. I don't keep any pets at home. Even, well, mosquitoes you can give, but animals are supposed to be where they're supposed to be, right? But sentimentally they get closer, so I'm not against people who have cats and dogs, but that's my belief system. Ethical to handle snake, until unless you have enough and more experience, until unless you know the snake inside out, until unless you know how much pressure to apply, you shouldn't get into that field, I would say, until unless you've been instructed by experts, because when I started rescuing snakes, I really don't know who to go and meet. So until I got an expert who does this thing for a long time, I didn't touch a snake. I was only reading books. So after catching so much of snakes myself, my last cobra put all my experience to test. I think that was the toughest catch of my life. So I cannot be overconfident that, hey, you know what, I've caught 699 snakes, so this is going to be easy. I could have died on my last snake rescue. So until unless you know the method, how to handle them, and which comes over the experience, it is not advisable. More than saying ethical, I would say it's not advisable to handle. This profession is associated with its own levels of risk. Until unless you guys are willing to take, until unless there's a lot of things involved. You guys will know that. Anything else?
Have you been bitten by a snake?
Non-venomous. Luckily not by venomous. I scratched by venomous snake quite some time back, but didn't hold any reactions. But not by venomous snake. Not a non-venomous snake. Rat snake is famous for that. So this very funny incident, I've gone for a snake rescue. It was a water snake, and my mother's come along with me. She's never seen me rescuing snakes. She comes along, this is before my marriage. So I go inside the house, and she was roaming with her invitation wherever she went. So go inside this house, and I catch this checkered keelback, and the checkered keelback bites me. And my mother all panicked, hey, Sujan's bitten by a snake, Sujan's bitten by a snake. And just giving the invitation. If he lives tomorrow, please come to this wedding. Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. Thank you guys again for your time.
Thank you for the inside information about snakes. I would like to request Rakesh to present the memento.
I don't want to take it from this guy.
Thank you, Rakesh. Sujan, I have a question. Please. Do you give back the pet to him? What? Sorry? Do you give back the pet to
இல்ல அது ஏன்னா இவர்கிட்ட நான் கொஸ்டின் பண்ற மாதிரி யாரும் பண்ணது இல்லையா அது வரைக்கும். கடந்த 2 வாட்டி அவர் நான் அப்படி கேள்வி கேட்டுட்டு இருக்கேன். ராகேஷ் சாப்பிட போலாமா? போலாம். அதுக்கு தான் நான் ஈவினிங் வந்திருக்கேன் நானு.
For presentation. So before we maybe assemble in the front for a group photo, just give me 5 minutes. So I want to thank the many people who are involved in organizing this. I want to thank first of all our sponsors, which are displayed on the posters: Just Sports, Just Bicycles, Recity, Car, Southern Shipping, Emu, Oniva Cookies. So without them, it would not have been possible to organize this. I want to thank the speakers, all the 14 unique individuals who came to share about their passion. In many cases, it's their life. I want to thank Saba. Saba has been our regular event manager in CPC. Okay. Sure. Saba, you want to come to the front? Say a few words. Let me call out a few of the key volunteers at least. Saba is our regular event manager, but it's a triathlon, a marathon, and trek polo. So equally important as Saba, we have Prabhakar. Prabhakar, please come. Always in the background, but an enormous volunteer, very active on social tracks. Any event basically in the city is an amazing guy. This year we had Sham. Sham has been running around all over. We have actually been trying to video record for the last 3 years many events. I think this year we're finally going to be successful thanks to. I also want to thank our photography team, Livia, Kartik, Vinod. Kartik and Vinod.
JP, Gautam, Don,
and a lot of supporting photographers on this.
Ganga.
Thanks a lot. I mean, their efforts are very important because, of course, probably around 300 people came here over the weekend, but by covering the event with video, with photos, we are able to kind of spread awareness amongst the venue through the social media. And I think we had a couple of media papers also. The Hindu came, Deccan Chronicle came, and Indian Express. So we can reach out to other people and get them infected with the outdoor virus. I want to thank our two anchors of yesterday, Harini, and today, Punita. I want to thanks a lot to Vinod and Bala for organizing the blood donation camp yesterday and today. It was a wonderful initiative, awesome response of 80 people, 80 donors. I want to thank Rakesh. Rakesh has also been typically contributing through the background, very energetic guy who drives other people, typically in charge for the past couple of years for the accounts and getting us in touch with sponsors, kind of overall organization. I want to thank Prem. Prem has been, Prem and Hollis group of has been helping out a lot with registrations and other things. Shailesh, not to forget Shailesh. Shailesh has been working amazingly. He has been going around Chennai, meeting people, meeting sponsors, meeting stall vendors. He has spent so much time over the last 3-4 weeks helping us. Thanks also to Saba, Gita, Ashwarya, who has helped us with, as usual, with the media contacts. Big thanks for our artistic talent, Rajiv Atria from Bangalore. You can see the posters. I mean, it looks really professional. It's an amazing talent. Rajiv has been our designer, which we discovered with our monthly Wilderness newsletter. So Rajiv was really, I mean, I remember working along with Rajiv many nights, 4 AM, 5 AM in the morning, reviewing versions of posters and reworking night after night. Also want to thank newcomer Yazar. I'm not sure if he's here. He designed the momentum. And, Yazar is here?
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah, wonderful design on CTC's t-shirt, the back, new design on the momentum. Thanks a lot, Yazar. We also sent so many mails back and forth to finalize the version. So yeah, I'm sure I forgot like tens of other volunteers. I just want to pick out a few people. I'm extremely sorry. I'm always a little afraid to do this thank you work. I'm sure I'm going to miss a lot of other people who have been working very hard behind the scene. I want to thank, all the people who have been helping out. So like Friday evening, many of you guys have been here. Students, people working to set up the whole venue. I would also request that a couple of volunteers can stay behind for another 1 hour. It will take us a little bit of time to take down all the equipment. So, okay, maybe I guess it's time now to come to the front and take our usual group snap. Please come.